What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. We had our first day in pads, and it was pretty exciting. If you're the defense, if you're the offense, and specifically Aaron Rodgers, there's major reason to be pissed off. But also, we have a secret UDFA that you guys need to know about if this first padded practice was anything to speak of. So keep that in mind as we go throughout the video, and I'll make sure I pinpoint that out to you all. But to get into the generics, as mentioned, this was day one, practice 5 with practice 5, but the first day of pads being on, and it made a world of difference. You think about the trench warfare, right? This is something that's been spoken about by a lot of people that I would trust anyways in terms of Jets beat writers, etc. It's very hard to determine who's doing well in the OTA and unpadded training camp sessions because you don't have the benefit of being able to lock in on your grip and certain techniques and stuff that you would utilize when the pads are there and you guys are on equal footing. And that seemed to make the huge difference for the Jets, specifically on the offensive side, because we know how lethal the defensive line is. And the key point about the defense absolutely wrecking and dominating the day is that not only did we see our starters go out there and continue to make their mark as being one of the top defenses in the entire league, the depth, the names of the people that I kept seeing in reports and that I dug up to and saw in highlight films, etc., keeps getting longer and longer as these practices go on. So it speaks volumes that it looks like we have a pretty a high quality pipeline in the works for a lot of these positions going forward. For the offense, absolutely horrendous day, multiple sacks, bad snaps, there were turnovers, poor blocking, receivers that couldn't create separation. Definitely by far the worst practice of the offseason. If it's going to occur, though, it's best that it happens now where there's a lot of opportunity to iron some of these kinks out. And, if you have to do a silver lining here, the good news is that there wasn't anything overwhelming, not an overwhelming red flag, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of there being a unfixable problem that reared its head today, right? And part of having a guy like Aaron Rodgers out there, Hall of Fame ability, elite leadership, in my opinion, from what we've seen so far, is that you're going to be able to get a lot of self-correction on the field before even having to return back to the film room and get the call out from the coaches. Some injury updates: Xavier Gipson, Brandon Echols, they were still out today, and then we actually got a return player in Nick Balding being activated off the PUP list. And the Jets are a team, one of the few around the league that carry enough to try to carry a fullback on the roster, and it couldn't come at a better time, technically speaking, for Biden, in just that he needs to be on the field so that he doesn't lose his position out to a guy like Zach Kuntz, who actually had some news about today. But essentially, it feels like you can either have a fullback or you can have potentially a fourth running back or a fourth tight end. Maybe Biden gets sacrificed for an additional offensive lineman, right? So he needs to come in and remind the team why he's here. Now, let's run down the list, right? Starting off offensively, Aaron Rodgers, visibly frustrated all day by all of the mistakes that have been going on, and he wasn't an exception to the rule. He had some errant throws himself. I've seen one highlighted about a misfire over the middle to Malik. I wanted to say Malik Taylor, that sailed over his head a little bit. He ultimately ended up going 8 of 13 in team drills with an interception to his name, also not his fault. And then the big piece where you see a lot of the call-outs about Aaron Rodgers being, miffed today was that one of the high snaps from Joe Tippmann led to either Tippmann or John Simpson stepping on his foot. He ended up going to the ground, stretch some things out, pop back up. But obviously, you can take this away from football. Whenever somebody steps on your foot, that results, especially in some kind of pain response, the immediate reaction after that is going to be anger, right? And you can equate this to somebody stepping on your Jordans, if you will. But all in all, considering that there was bad pass blocking, again, poor snaps, which means a lot of these plays were doomed to start before they even begin, the way our defense is set up, and then the receivers not being able to create separation, it's still I'm still kind of in awe that you see a stat line like 8 of 13, right? It's not anything crazy, but this could be just a general solid to below average day for a lot of other guys. So you have to imagine that Rodgers was still making, chopped salad out of expired tuna, if you will, based on how the offense performed today. And going forward, again, the sky's the ceiling for the offense as they get acclimated, try to find a way to fight back against this defense that's physical, aggressive, speedy all over the place, right? And we've seen plenty of people call it out, Pro Bowlers and All Pros littered all throughout the roster. Garrett Wilson, in good news though, still is that guy, again, victimizing DJ Reed on another big play today. And at this point, I'm not even holding it against DJ Reed. It is what it is when it comes to Garrett Wilson. Apparently, the only man on earth that potentially has a chance of stopping him is Sauce Gardner. Allen Lazard, he's had some strong practices in the offseason. From what I picked up today, nothing much to speak about other than his dropped pass, which kicked off team periods that led to an interception for Chuck Clark. But it was his press conference interviews that actually sparked something for me, because Salah highlighted him being on special teams as kind of another indicator that Allen Lazard is grinding things out to try to find his way back to that guy that worked his way into a number one role in Green Bay, and that came over to be a significant piece of an offense with the Jets. However, he has some interesting comments about his contract, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'll find it to put on the video for you guys, but paraphrasing, he essentially said something along the likes of his contract dictated him showing up to training camp, which was really, really weird, because it gave the indication that based on him needing to participate in special teams and not necessarily that he volunteered as part of being able to see the field consistently enough, may have, forced him to not show up or something. It'd be one of the first times that I've seen a guy get demoted and think about not showing up to training camp to fight for his job. So odd piece there that needs to get worked out. Maybe we get some more commentary about it. But Jeremy Ruckert continues his strong training camp, had a key block for Breece Hall on a big rush, got himself a big pass from Tyrod as well. Zach Kuntz finally gets his name out here. He got himself a big play action pass from Tyrod with some coverage draped all over him. And then speaking of the defense, right, or let's finish out the offense real quick. We have to talk about Joe Tippmann. So one of the things that stuck out to me is not just that he's had a couple bad snaps. Apparently, I've seen the number as high as 6 with potentially more high snaps, meaning things have almost fully sailed over Aaron Rodgers' head and he had to run to track it down. But a few people also mentioned along the lines that this isn't just the first we're really hearing of this. He's had problems snapping the ball out of the shotgun alignment all offseason, which this is news to me, right? It's the first time that I'm really hearing about this. So you hope that this ends up being just a blip on the radar for him, which I would say is probably the case, right? You don't have a guy like Aaron Rodgers speaking up what he can do from a leadership perspective, and then also highlighting his athleticism and stuff without him ripping into a guy because he can't even get him the ball to help this offense try to figure things out. So something to be aware of. And then other than that, let's finish up with some offensive guys. I don't know how I'm skipping at least one of these individuals, but Izzy finally contributed a couple positive plays. Apparently he broke off multiple long runs during this training camp practice. And then Braylon, Agent Zero himself, he had a big stiff arm. He had an offensive hit stick, if you will, versus Tony Adams, who tried to come into the box to get him. And Conklin talked about this, where it looked like he didn't even necessarily lower his shoulder to shrug Tony Adams off him. It's just him being a big boy. Also had a big run up the middle, and according to multiple people, he's had one of the best run plays of the day, if not the best run play of the day. So really excited to see that the run game at least didn't get hit with a lot of the negative commentary on this porous day offensively as a whole. So if you take it from that perspective, the pass game was more so the culprit than anything that occurred in the run game, which is fine, right? We plan on leaning heavily on the run this upcoming season anyways. It just means that we need to, of course, negate a lot of the negative situations occurring on pass plays, but we definitely need to make sure we're being highly efficient when they come along. Now, the defense. Giddy to talk about the defense for a reason, because as I mentioned, the starters are they're looking elite. Everything that I've seen, everything I've heard screams definitely number one defense potential, but also, again, the depth, right? And this is where one of our secret UDFAs that you guys need to know will come up, and I'll highlight him in a moment. But we have to speak about the interior of our defense. A lot of people have been concerned about the defensive tackle spot, but between Quinnen and Kinlaw, huge taste of speed and power combo inside, right? Two guys that, on paper can do both things and should be able to do both things really, really well. But from Kinlaw's perspective, and by the way, his press conference today was awesome. I love seeing press conferences. For me, can definitely change an outlook of how I view a player. Talent aside, which obviously the talent is one of the more important pieces, but it gives me a good indicator of who can overcome some of the challenges that we may have seen before. Kinlaw definitely feels like one of those guys, but he bulked up about 35 pounds over the offseason. Aaron Rodgers was right. Looks like a creature, so we're hoping that Kinlaw and Quinnen are names you hear highlighted very often on Sundays. And if today was any indication, it is going to be tough to do anything running up the middle against the Jets. Jamien Sherwood got himself a highlight by Saleh in terms of taking another step in the defense. He kind of called out the fact that Jamien Sherwood has always been good about getting the defense into the proper alignments, the proper calls they need, the checks being done. He hasn't always been able to make plays he should be able to make based on his athleticism on the ball, because he's worried about getting everybody into the proper spots, etc. He said he's seen that change during his training camp, and it seems to be the case. He got a pass breakup today, forced a fumble as well. And one of the key things to keep in mind with him is that a lot of people are worried about his run defense, so we'll see if that keeps up. Brady McGregor, UDFA, got himself 2 sacks today, one of them to help wrap up practice. Eric Watts, our other undrafted free agent, has helped terrorize the third string unit as well consistently. Tanzel Smart got himself a sack of Tyrod Taylor to wrap up practice. And then Al Blades, our undrafted free agent safety, got himself an interception versus Peasley. And one of the things to keep in mind is that our new quarterback, our UFL MVP, Adrian Martinez, we've heard Saleh mention everybody has an acclimation period, so I'm sure we'll start to see a little bit more competition there as we move forward. But our secret UDFA, Brandon Condrenting, a cornerback for us, had his best practice of the offseason. He's part of the return competition, which is another interesting facet into him potentially making the roster. But I heard that he's made some big plays in the run and the pass game in terms of pass breakups, and then being able to come up and minimize some plays. I'm not sure if we can necessarily call them run stops, but he is a name to know, if nothing else than for the return game. But I've heard his name creep up in 2 or 3 separate practices now, and I didn't think it was necessarily anything worth highlighting at the time. But this is starting to become a little bit more of a habit where he's sneaking in positive plays practice after practice, and now with the pads on, maybe he's looking to take his competition, that fiery spirit, to another level. I don't know what that is, and if you guys see it, but it looks like a weird like bubble thing that's dissipating. That's crazy. Nonetheless, though, let me know what you guys think about our first padded practice. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of this. At this point, things are going to be ramping up like crazy, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.